funeral procession that you would have seen as a typical thing in 1865 if you were near a town.
Fall down and you're dead. I'm sure they did. Like I said, I've seen them get off the train. It throws the whole concept off.
So were you a photographer? Have you been a photographer all your life?
Yeah, I was with the Boston Globe, but I've done other
South Carolinian men of military age, which is 16 to 65, died during the war between the states. Nationally, over 700,000 men died, and that's more men killed in combat than all other American wars added together, more than Afghanistan added to Gulf War, added to Vietnam, added to Korea, World War II, Spanish-American War, Mexican War, and the Revolutionary War combined is lower than the amount of men who perished in the war between the states. You always hear stories about the old schoolmarm who was a teacher all her life and never could find a husband. Reason why? There was few pickings after the war. So we thank all of you for coming out here. Our purpose is to bring history alive, create some appreciation and awareness of what went on. Did your ancestor fight in the war between the states? I'd like to see a hand. How many people know if they had an ancestor that fought? Hallelujah. You should honor them. And I strongly suggest you've got to keep the history alive, and you have to know where you're coming from to know where you're going. So stop by one of those tables on your way out. Also, what we're about is preserving soldiers' graves. So we're the guys that put the flags out every year, and we also put American flags out to veterans. And we also try to look after cemeteries, which are sometimes under assault. So that's what we're all about, is remember, like the cavalry chasing the bad guys in your Western movies, all the way from Aiken to a little town called Aiken, the first successful textile mill in the South. Tells, and of all things, for Northerners who were trying to burn the town, it became a health resort and a winter resort for a daughter's child, took her away from her mother. And it became a famous trial across the South. And that little girl, called the Poor Little Rich Girl, and she was brought to Aiken. So here she is living in Aiken. So today, during this battle, you're going to see a typical battle that would have taken place in 1865. We're not going to narrate it like a football game, so that you can kind of feel the noise and hear the noise and kind of experience what these men went through. So you're going to see some few soldiers probably come out and they will skirmish with each other. It won't be the main body of troops. They're called skirmishers. They basically are designed to try to find where the enemy are. And then at that time, some cannons will open up, firing at each other, and then also the cavalry will come out. And then maybe 10 minutes into it, and the main forces of both the Union and Confederates will be on the field. After the battle, we want you to remain seated because all the soldiers that participated in this are going to line up and they're going to honor you by firing a volley of 3 shots. But after that, they're going to fix bayonets and they're going to charge the crowd. So that is a very scary action scene. If you have a camera, that is the #1 picture that you want to get here today.
Darn sure brought a
So they
camera.
will address the crowd, so please stay and listen to
Maybe
that.
next time.
I had a little talk earlier today about the Confederate flag, and a lot of people don't realize what Confederate flags mean to people like us and these soldiers. You saw the funeral that came by here. And you have to remember that the Confederate flag has been misused by hate groups. And those same hate groups also used the American flag, and they also used the Christian flag. So should the American flag be banned? Should the Christian flag be banned? So to the Confederate soldier and their descendants, it's a battle flag. It's not a political flag. The flag you see was actually not even the Confederate government flag. It was a flag specifically for the battle troops that they carried in the battle. The very first flag is called the Stars and Bars, and unfortunately it kind of looked like a Union flag, and sometimes they had friendly fire towards each other because they couldn't tell who they were. They thought they were maybe Union forces. And that's when your typical Confederate flag that has the cross with the stars on it is created so it'll be identified in battle. There's usually 13 stars on that flag, and each star is for one of the states in the South. Some flags actually have 15 because they anticipate a couple other states, Maryland and Delaware, are both slave-owned states, to join in with them.
Yeah, we were standing
You know
right
that
here.
the city of New York also wanted to secede and join the South because of business interests, so a lot of people don't know that, which is kind of interesting. But the flag was the person who carried the flag in combat was the hero of the war. In battle, you could not tell or hear commands. You'd have to look, and that flag man would be in front of his regiment, maybe 1,000 men, and all he could do was look at that flag. And if it was moving forward, he'd march with the flag. If it moved back, he had to retreat. And so obviously your opponent knew that, so the first thing they tried to do is they would shoot the first target on the field was the flag bearer. The second target were officers if they could make them out. And when the man fell carrying the flag, it'd be wrapped around his body and he'd be laying on top of the flag. And what it is the flag was rot where his blood was and caused a biological change. And so that big hole in those flags is from the blood of the man that carried that flag. So until the 50s, 1950s, there was no disrespect for the Confederate flag. It was suspected as a battle veterans symbol, and it was honored by both North and South at cemeteries and whatnot. The only way I appreciate if you call a local rep and tell them you want them to support that bill. The other issue history is, what is home life like? During the Battle of Aiken, or prior or leading up to the battle, it was devastating. The men were all gone. Every man that was, say, 16 to 65 was away. Very few men were exempted to stay at home. You'd have a local doctor and a pharmacist, and that's about it. Everybody else was in the service. The menfolk were gone. They did have a local militia unit, and they were called Confederate Rangers, and they did help and act as guides during the Battle of Aiken, but they were an exception. So the women had to run the farms, and they're here, and all of a sudden, Sherman's troops are marching in. And of course, Sherman's troops were living off the land. And it was utter confusion. The women had a game plan, though. They made sure that they would always be in a group. They would never be by themselves. If they had to go out and use an outhouse, 3 of them would go together, and they would never be caught changing their clothes. They would wear the same clothes for a week because they did not want to be caught in a state of undress. The women, every bout of food was stolen, and if they didn't like what they had, they would destroy it because they were really trying to wage economic terror on the homesteads of the South. So we have the diary entry here where these Northerners that attacked this one house really did not know what rice was. They didn't know how to prepare it. So what they would do is they made a big pile of the family's rice, and they would pour molasses over it so it was ruined. They would take all the hams that was there, they would take all the livestock, the chickens, the cows, they'd lead them off, and if the animal was too small to bother carrying her, like in my family tradition, one of my ancestors had a pet colt. It was just a baby colt, but they knew that horse might grow up one day, and it might farm or help the economy or whatever, so anyway, they shot the horse in front of her, and that was her pet. They also, the Tool brothers who lived near here, were 15 years old, and they were hung in the yard, and again they did the same thing. They let them back down when they were ready to suffocate and touch the ground. And they said, "Where did your dad hide the horses?" And they repeated this 9 times, and they gave up because the kids were not going to tell. And what all the farmers did is they took their mules and their horses and went deep into the Savannah River swamps or the Edgestowe River swamps and hid them. And that was a matter of life and death because they knew the farms were going to be robbed of all the food. And this was in February, and they knew they had to be plowing by March. And if they didn't have a horse to, plow the ground or a mule, and you got 30, 40 people in your family depending on this one farm, they were going to starve. And so that same diary relate where they, after the troops moved out, this family got everybody there, servants and masters alike, and they followed the road for about 10 miles, and they would look on the ground, and where corn that had fed the horses was not digested and had passed through the body of the horse, they picked it up, and then they took that corn back and washed it. So that was the extreme methods that they were forced to do. The battle is only about 5 minutes away. You will see the battle pass back and forth in front of you, so all spots are good. However, you may want to walk, if you like cannons a lot, you can leave and walk down the side and get closer to the cannons and then come back to your chair if you want to do that. It is very noisy when you see that. Again, at the end of the battle, the men are going to form up here and do a salute to you, which will be several volleys of their musket fire towards you. They will start the battle. Thank you so much for coming.
Artillery crews are moving off.
Drop his arm. Right. And then fire the cannon. As he drops his arm.
Very good. Here we go. Finna go out.
Do the cannons one at a time?
Sir?
Do the cannons one at a time?
Yeah, they'll run them down usually from the bottom up.
Okay.
Oh.